Okay, if you're a Kiss fan, you're going to really like what I have for you here today. So what I found is it's kind of a concert review combined with kind of an overview of Kiss and where they were in April of 1975 and why that's significant. This is basically about a month after Dress to Kill came out. And of course, you understand that they were, although they were filling up big places. I mean, they were a very, very popular live band. As you know, sales of their records were not really very good. And they were in danger of losing their record contract. They were in danger of just kind of disappearing because they weren't able to make money off the records. You know, back then, which is different than today, when you needed to sell records, the tour, a lot of times that was the purpose of the tour, was that you'd go play shows and you'd go to town, play a show, and you would sometimes lose money on the concert, but you'd make it up with all the album sales that would happen. And so what would happen is Kiss would go play these big shows and they'd fill these places. They'd play thousands and thousands of people would show up, but then nobody would buy the records. And part of the reason was people would say that they would get the record and it just didn't have what the show had. It was missing the energy. It didn't have that thing that they would have, you know, because Kiss was all about the show. You know, if you listen to interviews with them, they'll talk about the fact that they'd say, you know, we wanted to be the band that we never saw. We wanted to create that thing, something special, put on a show, make something spectacular happen. And so people then would go buy the albums, and you can, you know, I was just a couple of years old at the time, but looking back, you can kind of get a sense of why that is, because if you listen to those first albums, they were a little bit, I don't know the best way to put it, dry. They didn't have the raw power and energy that you would have certainly had when you listened to the live recordings. And so the significance of this article is that this came out before Alive. And now why is that important? Well, Alive is the album that broke them. Because what they did, because those first three albums weren't really selling very well, they said, why don't we then make a live album? You know, let's try to capture that energy. And we can go on for a long time talking about whether or not it was truly a live album. In the end, what they were trying to do was create a record that would just capture the energy. And that's ultimately what they did. Whether it's truly live, I mean, it really, you know, at least the foundations of it were live, but they enhanced the audience sound and that kind of thing in the recording to try to add that energy, because they were, again, that's what they were trying to do. How do we put on vinyl the energy that people feel in the concert? You know, we can't put the lights on the album and we can't put all this other stuff. So how can we create a soundscape on this record that's going to give people that same energy that they feel when they're there? And so that's what they did. They didn't just take a live performance. They did record live, but then they enhanced it and did a bunch of things to try to recreate the energy that you can only get when you're there. And obviously they succeeded with it, because that album ended up selling like crazy. And that's what kept them alive, was the fact that, well, that's kind of funny because that's what the album's called, Alive. That's what really, really put them on the map, was that they put that live album out. And interestingly, again, they recorded that live album on this particular tour, not this show, but this tour that we're referring to in this article. And any Kiss fan will probably know everything that I just said. I didn't say anything new to you, but what I'm going to share with you, I think you'll kind of find fun, is this article. This was from The Province, April 30th, 1975. And so I think Dress to Kill came out in March of 1975. So again, this is just a month after Dress to Kill comes out. There's a concert, and then this guy talks a little bit about this band Kiss, that although growing in popularity, is sinking financially. That's the situation they were in. They were playing these shows, like I said, to support an album. they'd play the show, and then the album sales wouldn't happen, and then they're in trouble. Then the record company's in trouble, and everybody's in trouble, and then they put out the live album, blah, blah, blah. Okay, anyway. So this article is called Kiss Controlled Chaos. It's shock rock. All right, and this article is not very long, but I think, again, if you're a Kiss fan, you'll enjoy listening to this. Chicago. On stage, a member of the Kiss road crew reaches over his head to adjust a microphone. Wow, says someone in the third row. What are they, 8 feet tall? Not quite. The members of the rock band Kiss really average about 7 feet tall, including their custom-built 8-inch high boots and their freak frizz hairdos. They look like a gang of demented Japanese kabuki dancers on patent leather stilts, and they stink. In unwashed, steel-studded black leather, they smell of rancid sweat, gunpowder, and ozone. The total effect is in keeping with their music. Loud, electric, laden with fuzz tone, and played with all the delicacy of Godzilla devastating Tokyo. With the stage in darkness, a voice booms out the introduction, punctuated by explosions that dazzle the eyes and fill the air with acrid smoke. Are you ready to rock? Blam. Are you ready to roll? Blam. Then welcome Kiss. Now, I'm going to stop right there. I've been into Kiss for a long, long time. I have never heard of that being the introduction to a Kiss concert. We all know the introduction. Are you ready? It's not, are you ready to rock? It's, you wanted the best and you got the best, the hottest band in the world, Kiss. I mean, that's it, right? That is the, so I'm curious now if anybody saw Kiss in concert and they didn't say that, where you heard this, that this guy's talking about right now. Are you ready to rock? Blam. Are you ready to roll? Blam. Then welcome Kiss. I've never, when I read this article, first time I've ever heard somebody saying that that's how the concert started. Anyway, I'm just curious if anybody else out there has ever heard of this. This was new to me. Okay. A 6-foot-high electric Kiss sign blazes, and the band blasts into its opening song, Strutter. The crowd is on its feet, as if pulled by wires. In a band whose approach is uniquely visual, bassist Gene Simmons is the most startling. Black grease paint flames rise from his eyes. Black lips are surrounded by a mime's white face, fuzzy hair tied into a floppy top knot. Simmons strides about the stage in a half crouch like a huge tarantula. By the way, I missed that. When they were playing on the last few times you saw them, you know, he's in his whatever he was at that point, 70s. And he wasn't that slinky character that he was. When you watch that early stuff, the way he would jump and kind of move around on the stage, there was no more of that stuff. Once he got into those older years, like, yeah, I had enough of that. We're not doing that silliness anymore. That was for a younger Gene Simmons. Anyway, that was one of the things that kind of was cool about his character that just got lost in those little later years. Okay. Strides about the stage in a half crouch like a huge tarantula, knees bent and legs spread, thrusting out a long red tongue, flapping back bat-like leather wings and leering at the audience. During the course of each show, Simmons shoots a 20-foot flame from his mouth. Lead guitarist Ace Frehley fires little exploding rockets over the crowd from his guitar. Paul Stanley destroys his amplifier, and innumerable flashpans keep the hall filled with drifting smoke. The finale comes as drummer Peter Criss is levitated, drum kit and all, over the heads of the band. Aboard Flying Bertha, a concealed contraption resembling what Harry Houdini and Rube Goldberg might have produced had they collaborated on building a forklift. To a young audience jaded by the showbiz approach of Alice Cooper, Jethro Tull, and the like, Kiss represents the state of the shock rock art in 1975. And whatever one may think of the show itself, it must be conceded that the Kiss approach works. The kids love it. The band has been together barely 2 years and was virtually unknown outside the New York area only 1 year ago. It's really kind of crazy, says Simmons. We really don't realize how quickly things have happened. In May of 1973, we played for free in a loft. After a few months of staging their own dances in various rundown hotel rooms, Kiss got its first real gig. By the way, that is really interesting how they broke, because they were, when you go back and read those stories about those early days when they were playing with the New York Dolls and they were putting on these shows themselves, they were, when you listen to people, you don't have to love Kiss, but you can appreciate the fact that these guys were as hard of workers as anybody in the business to get where they were. And you listen to somebody like Rush, who toured with them for a while, and even you'll see interviews with Geddy Lee, and he'll say stuff, think whatever you want to about them. There's just nobody that worked harder than they did. That was a band that was out there working hard and knowing that people were paying money and they wanted to give them something special. And they really, really were that back here in these days. Kiss got its first, fourth on the bill. Kiss got its first real gig, fourth on the bill at New York's Academy of Music, New Year's Eve. Let's see here. But by the start of 1974, they had found their, quote, angel. He was Neil Bogart, a former head of Buddha Records, now out to make it big with his own Casablanca Records label. Kiss was his first act. Bogart flooded the band with money for equipment, costumes, props. He pulled Kiss from the ranks of the unknown with an ad blitz in the trade magazines that produced rumors they were a, quote, manufactured group. Rumors they've been fighting ever since. Quote, everything we do on stage is us. We wrote the music, we designed the costumes, we even apply our own makeup, says Fraley. Even before we got the name, adds Simmons, we had the whole concept pretty much formulated, our approach to the stage as theater. We used to put on makeup and play in front of mirrors, unquote. As for the music, it's the most basic brand of rock and roll. No fancy lyrics, sparring with the solos, heavy on the powerful chords. It is, as Simmons put it, quote, basically impact stuff. I remember, there's a lot of people that aren't familiar with Kiss, and because I'm a Kiss fan, people would be like, what would I even know? And I'd play them some stuff from Kiss, and they'd be like, that is not what I expected at all. Because the truth is, most Kiss stuff it's catchy music and it's really, really basic. It's just straight ahead rock and roll. You see them and you see Gene Simmons and the blood and all this stuff. And this is what I mean. People, it's not what they expect. They expect something really dark and heavy. And it just wasn't like that. A lot of their stuff was kind of like almost like 50s music. I mean, you listen to one of their early songs like Nothing to Lose. You got nothing to lose. Yeah, nothing. You got. And it just has this, I don't want to say bebop, but you know what I mean? It's kind of just a basic rock and roll kind of flavor. And not all this stuff is that bubblegum like that. But it really was just really fundamental, basic, fun rock and roll. It's what it was. It was just, and that was what he said here. And he even made this observation, like I just read. As for the music, it's the most basic brand of rock and roll. That's really what it was. And the impact of Kiss's onstage anarchy can have weird effects on an audience. Quote, Baltimore, we played in Baltimore, says Chris with a look of quizzical awe, and the people dug it so much when Gene spit the fire, they lit a part of the place up, started burning it to show they were digging it. Insanity, unquote. Simmons grins, quote, they were so into the show that they saw fire and they said, wow, fire, more fire. And they started lighting fires in the place, unquote. With 3 albums under their collective belt, generally good reviews and excellent sales in the cities they've played, plus an apparently endless supply of new tricks. By the way, I don't know how true that is when it says excellent sales, because of course that was the problem, and Neil Bogart was having to deal with it with Casablanca Records. And by the way, he was not the only one pouring money into it. Bill Aucoin was too. That's a whole nother story. The members of, apparently endless supply of new tricks. The members of Kiss think they're holding all the cards they need to play the rock and roll game and win. As Stanley puts it, quote, Kiss is the kind of concert I always wanted to see. It's 45 minutes of controlled chaos, unquote. And that's the end of the article. I'd love to hear any of you, again, I was too young at the time, but any of you that actually saw them during this period? First of all, if you ever heard an introduction different than what we were all used to, but what it was like seeing a Kiss show in those early days before Alive came out. Or if you saw them after, I'd love to hear that too, because I didn't see any of this stuff. But it is interesting looking at this period, this time when they really were, when they put out that album Dress to Kill. I mean, you hear stories. I mentioned Bill Aucoin a minute ago, where Paul Stanley, I think it was in his book, I think it was Paul, he made some comment about how he went into Bill to see if he could get more money to increase his allowance or whatever they called it back then, his salary, because they were just barely getting by. And Bill Aucoin put his feet up on the desk or something, and he saw that his shoes were just torn to pieces, and he's like, man, Bill doesn't even have, and they were going town to town on Bill's credit card, just trying to survive because they believed in it. And, and then it paid off, obviously, but even the live album was a little bit of a risk because not very few people had a really, really successful live album prior to that. They were trendsetters in a way, them and Peter Frampton, and others have had successful live albums like Cheap Trick, but that really wasn't a thing. And they're thinking, we're going to really try to make it big off a live album. Who's done that before? Other people that have live albums, but you don't use that to try to break out your career. But they did. And it was, and ultimately, obviously, it ended up paying off. But I'd love to get your feedback again, if you saw them during this time, what that was like. Of course, please follow the channel. If you're a Kiss fan, you probably know other Kiss fans. You might even be part of a Kiss group in Facebook or something like that. Share this video with them. Let them see what we're doing over here, because we have a bunch of Kiss videos too, because I'm a Kiss fan, and they get mixed into all the other videos we do on this channel. Please follow the channel, like the video, leave your comments about this stuff, and also give us your feedback on what other things you'd like us to do shows on. We've actually done a couple that people have commented on already, and we'd love to get that kind of feedback. And you can go to Audio Mover even, and I think we've got contact forms there too, where you could send us information about that as well if you've got some ideas. Anyway, with that, have yourself a fantastic day.